Post-traumatic stress disorder is a state of persistent mental and emotional strain caused by disturbing events that a person has witnessed or experienced. In film and TV, there have been so many renditions of this damaged and gritty anti-hero that people may even call it a cliché. And even though this reoccurring medium is far from boring, it is tricky to judge whether it is entirely accurate, as dozens of these stories will give up the realism of a complex condition for eye-popping violence in exchange for the audience's fulfillment. But the magnetic depiction of trauma in Lynn Ramsey's You Were Never Really Here is a study that, if not for its validity, entices the viewer to keep watching for every decision it takes in defiance of the shell-shock formula. The first shot of Joe is one of him breathing in and out of a plastic bag, juxtaposed to his own voice counting down and telling him to stand up straight, telling him that he's not good enough. The scenes are cold and empty, filled with snippets of flashbacks that are random to the viewer, but they mean something to Joe, a quiet and reserved mercenary who carries out hits rescuing missing children in return for an honest payment. It's clear our protagonist doesn't like who he is, but he performs good acts to help other people in need. This becomes one of the first contrasts between Joe and other damaged leads. Joe won't go to great lengths to survive. There's a lack of self-centeredness, there's no instinct of fight or flight, and a very real side effect of PTSD is written clearly. Joe is stuck in depression and self-hatred, leaving him with barely a reason to live. Wavering between life and death for as long as he can remember, Joe is a slave to his trauma. But Joe is a hitman, and his world is surrounded by inflicting violence on others along with himself. A common trigger in PTSD media is violence, and in all the bloodshed, you are reminded of the most terrifying parts of your life. But Ramsey makes an odd decision to hide arguably the most important part of a gritty and dark movie: the action. Joe's work is hidden in match cuts and out-of-focus shots, and the flickering triggers that Joe experiences are long after his encounters with violence, wedged in between scenes that don't seem relevant: faces, objects, obscurities. The heavy emphasis on the aftermath of violence is indicative and resembling of PTSD personified. It is never the initial moment, the gunshot, the boom, that is recalled in the trouble, but the echo, the dragging, gory aftermath. In the struggle to save the governor's daughter from a noxious underground sex ring, Joe brings forward his bloodthirsty demeanor of vigilante. He is thrown into the underbelly of political frenzy, and what starts as a mission to return Nina to her father is morphed into a fighting chance for Joe to do more than a job, to do the right thing. Joe's life is constantly threatened, but not in any way that's literal, as no brutes are a threat to him. Instead, it's his fragmented past blinking on screen sporadically with a looming dark presence. These images are abstract and haunting, and they create the same effect for Joe as they do for the audience. With no concrete exposition, we are frightened with Joe, wondering why we are seeing these things, and we both bury our heads further into something we understand: our mission. And as dead ends close in on each other, the pressures of reality begin to phase Joe, and he has to ask himself if it's time to leave. After almost reaching the end with his mother, Joe decides to save Nina from the same people who hired him, and from sinking too deep into the same life Joe has lived. But Ramsey, again, breaks away from the all-too-simple climax, and when Joe is here to bash the big bad boss, the job is already done, and Nina is no longer salvageable from her own violence. Ramsey gives away no satisfaction, no relief, and the anger, with no release, pushes back in on itself, and Joe's real enemy emerges again: his own thoughts. And I am left with a stronger connection to the inside of a damaged protagonist than I have felt in any other story of life. The throbbing feeling of uselessness and estrangement. What am I doing here? If I can't do a simple job, Why do I have to witness the insufferable consequences of my failures? As the visions close in on Joe, he witnesses a flurry of memories that represent all the traumatic chapters in his life. But the newest memory is one that is very much in the present moment. Nina, covered in the blood of her victims. My favorite thing about this movie is the note it ends on. In a bright and busy diner, Joe and Nina sit in a booth, sipping milkshakes. This sudden shift is unexpected, but it's also necessary to Ramsey's vision. In every mentally troubled character, there is a gritty sense of denial in the resolution, that even when the job is done, something is off, and there is an exponential void that never quite closes. But Lynn Ramsey avoids this. When Joe sees Nina drenched in red in the governor's dining hall, it is a stark realization that there is something to live for, as Nina is still very much in need of a hero, of someone with the same troubled mind as her. Both characters reach a freedom. Nina has not lost her innocence, but rather broken the shackles tied to her abusers, and Joe is not on a mission anymore, as his obsession with good deeds has fed a vicious cycle, hurting to stop hurting. There is an untethered psychic connection between two of the broken that no ordinary person can ever understand. Fact or fiction, there will always be a constant internal conflict for the traumatized. And when Joe envisions himself taking his own life, he sees what it's like if he was never really here. And Nina comes back to the table with a warm and soft reality. While the TV will always be playing in the background, when there is a seismic collapse in the mind of the hurt, the pain eventually fades out, and in comes a gentle, calm reason.